Hello, my name is Erin Chervala. I'm a librarian too at Baltimore County Public Library's Parkville Kearney branch. I'm here at Teen Connect to present my poster session on Reading Buddies, which is a volunteer program for teens in the library. These photos show our Reading Buddies in action. The Reading Buddies program was created in the fall of 2014 to address a branch goal of increasing teen engagement. Following a renovation at our branch, we were looking for new ways to use the space and to increase our program offerings. This objective would also enable us to meet strategic plan goals. In a sort of twist of fate, in the summer of 2014, our teen summer reading volunteers were asking if they could help out with programs that we were offering, like story times, and they were really interested in reading with younger kids. So that sort of led to an aha moment of, hey, teens want to volunteer at the library. That is programming and engagement for teens. So maybe this would be the answer, or at least one of the answers, to our planning goals. We began planning the Reading Buddies session in the fall of 2014 for implementation starting the following spring. We held our first session in spring 2015 with a group of experienced summer reading volunteers, and the rest is history. Let's begin by defining what do we mean by Reading Buddies program. Our program at the Parkville Kearney Library pairs teen volunteers to work one-on-one with an elementary student who's learning to read and would benefit from extra reading practice. They meet for about an hour each week to read together and play reading-oriented games and activities. The volunteers earn service learning hours. They serve their community and have accountability. They also gain valuable pre-work experience. So a few years ago, as Reading Buddies was growing, my partner and I were getting a lot of questions about how we put the program together, and we sat down to just kind of put together a planning framework for Reading Buddies. And what we came up with is a 6-step planning cycle that we'll see in the next slide. And here is the visual of the planning and implementation cycle. Again, this is the 6-step planning and implementation cycle that Eileen and I created for our Reading Buddies program to make it easier to share with other people. This starts at the top with planning. And that's just researching models, choosing and adapting to your needs and setting your dates, things like that. The next step would be recruiting participants. And then probably the most time-consuming piece of all, recruiting and also scheduling. It falls under recruitment. The next piece is to train your volunteers and your staff. And then you'll be supervising, you'll be off and running. And so you're supervising the program for that 6 to 8 week duration is what we usually run it for. The next step would be to conclude and celebrate. And by concluding and celebrating, the things that we would include in that would be surveying the participants, the parents, and also really important to celebrate what the kids have accomplished, both the junior buddies and the volunteers. It's a really important step in their development for both of them and a really important activity. And finally, you'll be evaluating and adjusting. And so we would be in this stage reviewing the surveys, seeing what worked, what didn't work, tweaking the program. And then as the arrow points back to the beginning, you're going to start over with the next session and figure out what you'll be doing in the future. Next, I'd like to just review a few of the key resources that we found helpful in running our Reading Buddies program. I'm not going to review every single item on this list, but just highlight a few of them. The first one I'm going to highlight is the first one on the list, which is Excel. and that's the Office 365 application for spreadsheets. And we use it for our scheduling, our attendance, and our general records and data so that we can keep track of all the information in this program. Another useful feature has been to have a virtual library card dedicated to our branch's Reading Buddies program. That enables us to place holds on materials that the buddies might want but that aren't on our shelves and have them sent to our branch for them to use. The next item I'm going to just quickly highlight, we do use stickers and sticker charts. This is volunteer-led. We let them determine how to use them, and then we have a prize box that, say, when the buddy fills a sticker chart or even a row in their sticker chart, they can get a little prize. It helps to keep them sort of optimally engaged, and the volunteers can kind of differentiate between their buddies as far as whether a book would earn a sticker or just 5 minutes of reading would earn a sticker to meet that individual's needs. Another item to highlight that also keeps it fun is educational games. We have Zingo, Scrabble Junior, Bananagrams, Wordplay. This is a lot of fun for reading breaks because they don't read the entire hour together. They do take breaks and play games. So this is a good way, again, to keep them engaged. We also keep an analog sort of backup system in the form of a binder that's just got printouts of the schedule of the participants' contact information and enables us to just pick up the program on the fly should we have a network failure or something like that. Always good to back up. Of course, we are running a Reading Buddies program in a public library, so we have access to books, magazines, all those sorts of reading materials. It's important to note that for our virtual session, we are using ebooks as well now. And that's nice because the buddies can screen share and read together, and we don't have to worry about getting them identical copies of the same book as we might have had to do if we didn't have access to this, which leads us to the last item, Zoom, or a similar online meeting platform that has breakout rooms. The individual buddy pairs would meet in the breakout rooms, and so Zoom, Google Meet, any of those would have the breakout room feature. The last part of my poster session is going to cover the conclusions and some outcomes that we have observed at our program at the Parkville Library in BCPL. I mentioned a few slides back that we use Excel to keep the participation records for our program, and this is one of the nice things about having those records. We can dig up these numbers pretty quickly. So let's do the numbers. We have had 17 completed sessions to date. Our 18th session is currently underway and will conclude at the end of March. We have to date had 120 volunteers in the program. 30% of those volunteers have participated in more than one session. And 113 is the number of junior buddies that we have had go through the program. In that pool, we've had 39% that have participated in more than one session. That's a little higher than it usually is at the moment, partially because some of our buddies who are working together in the canceled session last year that was canceled due to the pandemic are still working together. But those are our key numbers. Another important number that's not on the slide would be 3, and 3 is about the normal number of sessions we would have in a calendar year. The next slide I'd like to share with you shows some survey results. As I mentioned previously, we do survey our participants at the end of each session, and this particular graphic is a parent survey that we conducted in spring of 2017, and it's probably our most complete survey that we did, and the motivation for that is because we had received a grant and we needed to report statistics, so we had a lot of a lot of really good feedback from parents, and we were able to really take the time to make sure we got all those survey responses back. So just sharing this, and it's also pretty indicative of what we see overall through all our sessions. In this particular survey, we had asked, has your child demonstrated an increase in their reading skills? And 100% of the parents agreed with that in this survey. The next question asked about confidence and in reading aloud, especially because that's one thing that parents tend to tell us they need the most, is they just need more confidence when they're reading aloud. So again, this survey, 100% of the parents reported that increased confidence, which was outstanding. The next question asked about grades and school performance, whether there had been an improvement. Again, 100% here. For all three of these, I would say not 100% every single child every single time, but overall we are hitting that 85 to 90% mark consistently when we get those survey results back, which has gotten harder as we've gotten busier and the program has grown. But that's definitely true overall. And the last question asked on this particular survey was about whether they had any communication from the teacher that indicated they had observed an improved performance. And here we had 92% of the parents saying yes, their child's teacher did note that the child was doing better in school with their reading. So these are great results, and this is why we have kept doing this program, because we see these positive outcomes and because the kids are engaged and it's really making a difference for them. This next slide, testimonials from parents. These are some really wonderful words we've received and feedback in the surveys and outside of the surveys as well. So we just wanted to share this with you. Let's take a moment now to talk about why. Why do a Reading Buddies program in your library? Our answer to that would be, it's a three-way win. It's a great way to benefit all stakeholders in the community. Teens gain service learning hours. They serve their community. They have a stake in their community. They're gaining valuable pre-work experience. Many of our volunteers intend to be teachers, so this is great experience for them. Elementary kids are learning to read or become more proficient, confident readers. They gain a friend and they gain a mentor who's going to be there for them. For their parents, it's free. For the library, we are increasing our door count, our circulation statistics. Our buddies check out materials and take them home. Our program participation increases, not only for Reading Buddies, but there's cross-pollination because the people who come in for Reading Buddies also see other programs advertised and then participate in those programs. It engages the community all around. Let's take a few minutes to talk about challenges that we have faced in implementing our Reading Buddies program and how we solved them. First thing that we noticed was that elementary kids coming in after school had a hard time sitting still. Our solution to that was, gosh, what can we get them so that they can kind of move around and get that energy out, but still sit and read? We ended up applying for and receiving a grant to purchase yoga balls and desk cycles so that they could sort of simulate riding a bike or just bouncing around, being on their bellies while they read. The next challenge that we had was junior buddy attendance and communication with the parents. We had some junior buddy families that were having a hard time meeting that weekly commitment, or they thought it was more loosey-goosey. So we started pre-screening before we gave the application out and letting them know that it was a weekly commitment and what would be expected of them in terms of participation, so that that was right up front. We could offer alternatives to families for whom that was not going to work out. The other thing that helped with is that it pointed to us the need to offer evening and weekend meeting time options, which worked out very well. We also just continuously communicate and stay in touch with all of our families, whether it's face-to-face or by email. Another challenge has been volunteer demeanor. This has been much less of a concern than I think we might have feared. Most of our volunteers have been wonderful, but for the things like cell phone use and how to manage their buddy, we just provided more specific information during the training about library expectations and rules, and also we have screened applicants a little bit more, especially if the application seems to be coming from a parent. And in the future, we do hope to institute an interview process. The last thing is supervision. A reality check Reading Buddies is time consuming to run. So it's really important to have all your staff comfortable with running, hosting the program, and with handling any minor issues that arise, or pointing them to a librarian in charge or other staff member to resolve. We've also at times scheduled a team to host during busy times when either we are short-staffed or we just have a lot of pairs meeting at once. It really does help to have someone dedicated to the program. And it's also a great way to involve the volunteers. I'd like to wrap up this poster session by just talking about some next steps for us in the Reading Buddies program. And one of our things that we'd like to do is to involve our teens a bit more in the execution of the program, whether it's putting together the folders that the buddies use when they're in the branch, or maybe even being more of a resource for training and recruiting other volunteers. We also would like to interview our prospective volunteer applicants. When they're back to being in person, we might use Zoom for that or do in-person interviews, again, making it a bit more of a preparation for real life work experience. Another idea that we've had is to look for a new communication and reminder system. We have been using one called Remind, and it's a bit hit or miss as to how it works for us, so we may continue to look for a new option there. We also just have been given a small budget to run a Reading Buddies program at our library, so we will be managing the budget and learning all about that process. And finally, just continue to reassess based on survey results and adjust our program based on the needs of our community. Once again, if you're interested in considering a Reading Buddies program, I strongly recommend taking a look through the references that I've listed here. They were a great help to us as we prepared our program. Thank you so much for attending this poster session on the Reading Buddies program. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch. My contact information is here. I look forward to talking with you in April. Thank you.